Okay. So now that we heard all those great ideas on how we can improve our food system, the big question is, what's next and how do we implement that to make changes? So I'm going to start with you, Gunhild. And what do you think is the biggest barrier that's preventing us from moving forward with all these ideas on a larger platform?
Well, I still, to reiterate what I said in my speech, I still think one of the major obstacles is lack of collaboration. Obviously, we are on the right way, things are moving in the right direction, but we are not able to kind of bring things together, and we are still lots of scattered change makers out there, but we are not able to build these game-changing movements. And obviously, if we were able to launch an Apollo program for a food revolution, we could do it. I mean, technology is not the barrier, it's lack of collaboration, lack of co-creation, and lack of bringing people together. And obviously, if governments around the world were starting to talk across corridors, I mean, take US, which is an interesting example in many ways, but they are providing billions of dollars over the Farm Bill, mainly going into 4 crops: wheat, corn, soy, rice, and obviously used for junk food and animal feed. And then on the other end of the corridor, the Ministry of Health is struggling to balance skyrocketing healthcare costs. So, and every second American is now suffering from at least one preventable condition. So if they were connecting the dots and looked into the food system as a whole, they would obviously see that it does make sense that we are producing what makes us sick and destroys the planet. We need to start producing what we need from a public health and an environmental perspective. And also, something that I really think would add to speed up things would be to introduce true cost accounting. If we had start to look into what is actually costing us in action on food systems, then the numbers are getting pretty significant.
Yeah, thank you. So, Matt, I'm going to go to you. You've been at the forefront of changing how we do agriculture in the States. And for a lot of people, GMOs is a hot topic issue. Are they good? Are they safe? Is it good for our environment? What are your thoughts? And do you think with your technology that you mentioned before that they eventually could become obsolete?
Yeah, it's a good question. So your GMO technology has been adopted in, I think, corn and soybean acres to the tune of 92, 94%, at least in the United States and South America. And we really were trying to accomplish something using a genetic variation from a different species, right? So you're trying to take a gene from another organism and put it into this organism to allow us to improve it in some way. We think that you can accomplish orders of magnitude more by using the natural genetic diversity within the plant species itself. So, to the extent that a plant has often native disease resistance mechanisms, native herbicide tolerance, native nutrition density, native drought resistance, right? These are things that we need to really tap into and do a lot better job of gaining that visibility about what the true power of the plant can provide, and then breeding or using genome editing to enable those things for what, frankly, consumers are demanding, which in large part is non-GMO. Does GMO have a place? Today, certainly in production agriculture, it does. I think our position in this is consumers should have a choice. We need to be much more proactive. We need to innovate on these crops that are not corn and soy in an aggressive way, where there's a tremendous amount of upside, that can enable consumer benefit and, frankly, drastically improve the effect that this sector has on our economy and our planet. Sorry.
Yeah, and there's a big push with the organic market. Are we able to produce enough organically to feed the world, or is this technology is needed?
That's a good question. I think nobody really knows that answer. I think there's been some studies that show the intensity that an organic system requires, and I think some of the solutions, frankly, to make that work they don't exist, or they don't exist yet. Are we able long-term to figure that out? Maybe. I think there's aspects of organic that we can all agree are part of the future, and that's creating a much more diverse, resilient environment for us to make food in ways that, again, are in many respects the process and not necessarily the product, right? So it looks holistically at the system that's there. And again, I think at the end of the day, this is a lot about what a consumer wants and what a consumer feels that they need to feed their families, what they need to feel responsible as a citizen and as an environmental steward.
Yeah. Sarah, I'm going to go to you. I know you're doing a lot of work in Africa with desertification. What's next for you? Is there, are you looking to go into new markets with your idea? What's the plan?
As I said in my talk, the plan is to change the world through food, and I really believe that the food industry can give a big impulse to development in Africa, and especially in arid areas. Because when we talk about superfood like moringa, for example, you know that moringa is a plant that is specifically adapted to arid areas, that grows with a very little amount of water. So it can help improve lives of many farmers. And in the same time, things like moringa and superfood in general, they are, like we say, the future of food, because we all are looking now today, we are all conscious that we are what we eat, and if we don't change the way we eat, if we don't have a more conscious diet, we are going to many health problems. So what I'm doing today in Tunisia is just the first step. I'm just 30 years old. I mean, for me it's the beginning, and I really believe that I can scale in other areas.
Yeah, is there any markets in particular that you're thinking you'll move next?
Yeah, next we are working on all kind of superfood, no sugar, no gluten products, based on local seeds. As I said, we don't plant only moringa, we plant date palms, we plant olive trees, and many other crops that can be used as a way to improve people's health.
Yeah. Vincenzo, out to you. You've been working a lot on food science and figuring out, the bioactive compounds and how, they affect your body. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that food is very important to prevent disease, because many diseases are related to oxidative stress and to inflammation. And in food are present bioactive compounds, natural bioactive compounds, that they can reduce oxidative stress, because they can reach our body, they can reach our cells, and they can go to modulate some transcription factor, and this can increase our antioxidant system, and this is very important because there is an equilibrium between oxidant and antioxidant, and if we are stressed, the free radicals can increase, and in that case, there is oxidative stress that is related to maybe 40, 50 disease. And bioactive compounds, they can re-equilibrate the system, because they can go to induce, for example, NRF2, that is a transcription factor that is hold antioxidant system enzyme like a superoxide dismutase and other. They can reduce also inflammation, because bioactive compounds, they can go to high inhibit NFKB, that is a transcription factor of inflammation. And in this way. But also food and bioactive compounds, they can go to modulate our microbiome. That is very important, is related also to many diseases. But it's important, food is important, but it's important the quality of food. It's very important to have food of quality, and it's important to study antioxidant, bioactive compounds, and other chemicals, natural chemicals present. And I think also in the future can be very important the foodomics studies, because we can reach with foodomics studies epigenetics, nutrigenomics, epigenomics studies. They can give us information to create a personalized diet.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I hate to skip you, but I know, Karen, you work in this same area. And you say it's, figuring out the way different foods, how we cook them, can really change and prevent illnesses.
Yeah, I think it's becoming clear that the microbiome is like a new organ, a newly discovered organ that's linked to our physiology in health and in disease. And what's emerging is that diet is the real driver of this microbiome, and in particular dietary diversity. If we want a diverse, stable, resilient microbiome, we need a diverse diet. And so advice in terms of diets, we've had dietary guidelines for 20, 30 years. We know what the good foods are. We know what a healthy diet looks like, but it's very difficult to translate that into everyday life. And we heard Haley Thomas speaking earlier on. That approach of getting people to love food, to love the preparation of food, to love the diversity of foods. As Matt said, we have 30,000 edible species, but we eat 5 of them. To change that dynamic is how you support a healthy microbiome. The bioactives, the polyphenols and fibers are the compounds that escape digestion in the stomach and small intestine and reach the colon, where you find the microbiome. And so increasing diversity of the diet, increase the bioactives, they change the dynamic of the microbiome, increase diversity, increase its resilience to change, to stress of modern life, and help protect chronic disease related to metabolism or inflammation.
Okay.
So
but when you say diversity, I mean, people are very confused still today about what that means and what a healthy diet means. Yeah. I mean, can you explain to me a little bit what your vision of that is?
We've had the Mediterranean diets. We have the pyramids, the healthy eating plate in the UK, high intake of fruit and vegetables, high intake of whole grain cereals, lower intake of animal protein, milk, dairy, meat, and small intake of highly processed foods, the sweets, and particularly sugar. Sugar as the main marker of the Western-style diet and an unhealthy diet. So translating that into everyday life is difficult, especially when people have huge demands on their time. But it's about education. It's about changing people's attitude towards where their food comes from, what foods they like to eat, changing their food education, the diversity of foods they come in contact with, and teaching them how to enjoy them, how to incorporate them into their diet. So Haley's talk was inspirational. That is the approach that really works in terms of changing diet and changing your disease risk in terms of chronic disease like type 2 diabetes, and much of that works through the microbiome via these plant bioactives.
Yeah. Well, my question to you is there someone to blame for the position that we're in right now? Is it big food? Is it pharmaceutical companies? How did we get to a stage where, a majority of us are overweight and, sicker than ever before?
We focus on rehabilitation medicine, but this is a general idea. We need to push the patient to reach the best level of health condition, means to mix drugs and diets in the right way. We need to push plasticity, we need to push motion and emotion too, and to mix motion and emotion, and we need the best approach in terms of amount of protein, vitamin, and so on, but we need smell, we need color, we need shape. Our patients have to enjoy the life. And we have to modulate the ability of the patient, and we have to modulate the diet depending on the ability of the patient, and to facilitate recovery of function. We use, for example, wearable robotic system to allow patients with spinal cord injury to perform exercise and to walk around. And we realize that they improve a lot the bowel control. That means that one of the main reasons to perform exercise is to perform something able to change microbiome of this patient. And then gut and brain is very important, and motion and emotion is very important, as well as diabetes, hypertension, and so on.
Yeah. Someone said an interesting point to me that there's a clash between consumer demand and responsible food. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? That, you know, people are going to still eat that processed food and still get sicker, and it doesn't matter what we tell them, or any thoughts on that?
You know, I disagree with Matt when you said let the consumer choose, because that is not necessarily a successful strategy. I think we have a responsibility as the stakeholder community to start communicating complex messages in a much more simple and accessible way. Obviously, the information, what is a healthy diet, if you add, it needs to be sustainable as well. There is no one that knows. I mean, even scientists are not in agreement. So I think we have a big job to do, and obviously something like an IPCC mechanism to bring the science together and what is good for both people and planet. We cannot choose either or. Needs to be put forward as some actionable evidence for policymakers and business people.
Yeah. Do you think we also need to change, you know, doctors? I mean, are they helping to prevent illness or treat it?
This obviously is a system change. We need this to fizzle down across all sectors, right? We cannot afford to do only one thing. And obviously for consumers, we are still mainly driven by price, taste, and affordability and convenience, right? So we need to change the food environment, and that is not something we can leave up to consumers. Today, it's still, most places, easier to get hold of alcohol and cigarettes than fresh fruits and vegetables. And that, I mean, the new normal ends up being fat and sick and we cannot blame the individual when 60% of the population is overweight or obese in certain countries.
Yeah. Matt, I have a question for you. What do you think? There's been a lot of talk about blockchain out there, and people are saying it's going to move to the agricultural area. Any thoughts? Do you think that could help reshape it?
Absolutely. I mean, when we talk about a lot of the technologies that we employ and we talk about crop diversity, it's going to take us rethinking the way that our supply chain currently works. I think blockchain, depending on who you ask, is either already making an impact or it'll make an impact in a really significant way over the next few years. But absolutely is the short answer, and we think that it actually helps get this visibility that's requested or that's being asked, the transparency that's being asked of our value chain, of our supply chain, and frankly, give folks a lot more options. I don't know if we give them all the choices that they always make the right choice. One thing we like to say is we're trying to make healthy food taste unhealthy. But when we talk about some of those things, a lot of this is accomplished at the formulation level. And so looking, as blockchain is doing, back up into the value chain, we believe is one of the biggest keys to unlocking, really the potential of what, natural genetic diversity of plants has provided us.
Yeah. So out to you guys, what do you think the future of nutrition holds? Do you think we're going to move to more personalized nutrition, finding out what exactly what food works for me, that might not work for her? Where do you see that going?
Okay.
Oh, that one.
Okay, now
Use both.
it works. Okay, I think that functional food can be very important for the future. For example, we have experience about fermented food, because fermented food they can increase bioactive compounds. They can improve microbiome also, because there are bacteria that can improve. I would like also to talk about food security, because sometimes when we use a functional food, superfood, need to see if they can create some interaction in people that take that consume drugs. For example, we cannot to have a lot of just the single food, but we need during the day to have more food, and because sometimes if in my body reach some bioactive compounds increase, they can interact with the metabolism of drugs also. And it's very important for people that are that they use drugs to be attention about food also, because some bioactive compounds they can go to inhibit metabolism of drugs also. This is a very important question, I think.
Another point that we have to stress is education of physician. Education of physician to be able to manage the problem of diet, not exactly like a drug, because it's a problem of relationship between the physician and the patient and the family too, particularly when you have to involve the family to prepare the food and so on. Then it's a problem of humanity, of relationship, because you would like to change lifestyle. You would like to change maybe when you have to enjoy your food, after which kind of physical activities and so on. Then education of physician too may be very important to be able to personalize in the right way and to use all the scientific report that we have about the properties of the food in real life for the patient and for relationship inside the healthcare system.
So do we change how they, teach doctors in medical school? What's the solution?
Absolutely, maybe very important. Maybe this is another part of the problem. More humanities inside medical school, as well as scientific support, is a key point, this one. Because if you discuss a diet about 255 kilograms or micrograms or grams, don't mean nothing for the patient. The patient is why. What is the goal? How is possible to do this? What is the way to reach this goal altogether? This is a key point if you would like to change really how to enjoy the food.
Yeah. Karen, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think in terms of personalized nutrition, there's really a two-speed track. There's clinical nutrition, as you said, for people with specific diseases, and educating clinicians to provide nutritional support for those diseases, very important, based on the best science. At a more general level, you can identify groups of individuals, infants at weaning, healthy adults, adults who are involved in sports, obese or lean individuals, too lean, or elderly people, and you can design food products supporting healthy diets for those groups. So it's not personalized to the individual, it's personalized to groups of individuals. And those diets are emerging already. Those foods are on the market. We have foods for elderly people, for infants, for weaning. So personalized nutrition, it's a very grand concept, but maybe there's two different speeds. There's the clinical aspect, that's very focused on the disease and disease specific, and therefore individual specific, and more population based groups of individuals, infants, elderly, obese people.
All right, I'm going to play a little game to end this. I want everyone to tell me one thing that excites them about the food industry right now, and one thing that causes them fear. Karen, you start.
I think the most the most exciting thing, and was very evident today, even walking around, is the willingness of the food industry to diversify and to take on innovation, come up with new ideas, and to bring diversity back into the food chain. I think that's very exciting, and that'll feed into consumer behavior, but also is educated by consumers, as we heard earlier on today. One thing in general, and this is maybe not just the food industry, but science as well and government as well, is the failure to learn from the past mistakes. And I think not identifying lack of diversity, or this drive towards monoculture in agriculture, and maybe the silver bullet approach in industry, and also for scientists and medicine, and not learning that that's not the answer, it's not going to work, is a failure, and sometimes we still carry that attitude.
In terms of innovation, is to link the ability to learn something about genetic of the human to genetic of the food, and to link this one. And the fear is to transform something very important to enjoy the life in some artificial way to support the life.
I think that epigenetics can be very important. For example, we know we are just at the beginning about microRNA in plants and in food, and the action that they can have in our genome, because many microRNA, they can modulate some genes and can change. I think that is very important in the future to study about this. Foodomics. We are in the foodomics science.
I'm very excited by the fact that today technology is now accessible to anybody, and it allows us to make links between farmers, between communities who are making the food, and consumers. And for example, we're talking about blockchain, but we are also talking a lot here about IoT, about how to help farmers to improve irrigation systems, and how to grow a better food in a better way. But I think we need to be brave, and we were talking about responsibility. The food industry now how to take its responsibility and be bold, be brave enough to make the change that are needed.
Mine are related. I think I'm singularly most excited about genome editing and the promise that it provides for food and agriculture and helping advance our system, principally for the same reason that Sarah just indicated, which is it empowers innovation amongst more than a few players, hundreds, thousands of innovators. It's a game changer. And it doesn't just have to be a game changer in human health, it can be a game changer in food and ag. One thing that simultaneously troubles me, that keeps me up at night, is related to genome editing, and that's just a disjointed, frankly non-existent global regulatory framework. We as a society have regulated advances in food and technology very differently globally, and we need to come up with a consistent regulatory framework that governs these types of technologies and how they're deployed in our food system in a responsible way, but that maintains the ability for small players to access, to implement, and to deploy those technological solutions. If we can't, and we swing over into what was GMO land for things like this, we will revert exactly to very few companies being the only ones that can innovate. And I think that that will be a catastrophic outcome for our system.
Okay, it's late in the day, so let me not talk about the problems, but what makes me truly optimistic. And that is what I call Tesla for the plates. Because one of the biggest challenges we have right now, and what will be the hardest, is to see a global shift towards healthy and sustainable diets. And obviously, we as consumers need alternatives that are healthy and sustainable, but as important, available, affordable, and convenient. And products like Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat and all these plant-based startup companies that are now making alternatives that are so good, so close to the real deal. So when it starts to smell, look, taste the same, but it's just healthier and it's much more sustainable. I mean, who are going to miss the cow? No one. And then we can talk when these products are coming out and are available, and obviously when volume go up, price will go down. So I think we can do it, but it will require collaboration. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there you guys have it. Things are looking up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.